Today, we are joined by Kevin Lerner, a leading presentation consultant and speech coach with over 25 years of experience training executives and teams how to deliver innovative, meaningful presentations. And that doesn't mean just creating better slides, which is important and will be covered in today's session, but it also means kind of having the right mindset and preparation, which Kevin will talk about as well. He's worked with many major entities, including Comcast, Office Depot, Oracle, Johnson & Johnson, NASA, the US Army, just to name a few, and now Marriott, right? To them. And with that, I will pass it over to you, Kevin, to get us started.
Thank you so much, David and Christopher. Thanks for engaging this project and for everyone for being with us today. We've got a good program, I think, and you know what David just said. This is over 25 years. I wouldn't normally say this in a kind of a job interview, but I think it adds some depth, some strength here to say I've been doing it for a while. When I was 5 years old, I was selected to be the announcer for the kindergarten school play introducing the acts. And over the years, I've worked with video, with presentations, and it's always just been a passion of mine to help people present. And so this is what I've been doing as my core practice. And so many times I'll go to a conference room, and maybe you've gone to a conference room and you've seen something like this, just an abominably boring slide and people just falling asleep, not paying attention. So how do you go from something like this to something like this with a dynamic graphic, a dynamic speaker, the audience is engaged? This is what we're attempting to get at today. The name of the program is Dimensional Presentations. I say that because a lot of times I would be evaluating somebody in Toastmasters and saying your presentation's flat, it's just full of facts and data. I want something more rich, more dimensional. So we'll get to that in a little bit. But fundamentally, our program today is full of strategies, tips, and examples to create and deliver great presentations. It's a win-win strategy today because I'm trying to build a small business, and I like to say that if I win, you're going to win, and vice versa. We're going to be amplifying your skills, hopefully getting us all praise and recommendations, and going through and getting success. So I'm going to actually ask this to Chris. What do you guys define as success? If I was to say this presentation was successful, how would you define that, Chris?
This presentation or just MDS
No,
in general?
and MDS in general. You know, that you're putting a presentation slide together and someone said that was a great success. And how do you define success?
I think MDS is defined as success as offering world-class digital solutions to hotels globally. I think with this session specifically, I think if everybody can take one thing that they improve their presentations with and implement those internally within our team, that's going to make us more successful, and especially with our customers as well. And if we can create a more clear message with them, then we've been successful as well. So I'd encourage everybody to take at least one thing from the session today, and I'm sure that will be a success for everybody.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. So today's topics. We've got 4 key topics. We're going to talk about the big picture of dimensional presentations. We're going to take a new area about breathing in presentations, breath in presentations, and the importance of breath when it comes to delivering and designing presentations. During the COVID era of online presentations, I put this whole 40-slide section together about top tips for amazing web-based presentations and meetings. And then we've got some resources available to you guys that Christopher and David have that they'll introduce at the end of the program that can help with your presentations. So I just want to start with just a couple of quick intros here and maybe have a few people jump in and kind of share what you do. And I'm going to ask actually what's weak with the presentations. So maybe I'll look to Christopher to have you play the MC and point out a few people, 2 or 3 people that you'd like to call on to say what kind of work do you do and what's weak with the presentations that you see in either the market or at Marriott MDS.
All right, well, we'll start with our Special Achievement Award winner, Ricardo. You can go.
Oh my God, being put on the spot this morning. All right, I'm Ricardo Dessou. I'm responsible for vendor management. In my role, I guess typical presentations I would do is either to leadership on like successes as vendors or strategy, like what should be changed, a lot of number stuff in there probably. And then some of it is maybe QBRs and making sure that we have what we need also to communicate to the vendors in terms of like what are next steps, what's needed, how have we been doing the last few months. Personally, I struggle with visualizations. I'm a very analytical thinker. I'm a wordy person, so maybe too much words. And I wouldn't say I have the right eye for design. So that's what I usually struggle with in presentations.
Okay. One more.
Kimberly Moore. Are you on the line?
I love it. So my name is Kim Moore. I'm the Director of Client Services. My typical presentation, it can vary from one day to the next, but it's very often with a client. So that's very important. And it's usually a client that doesn't understand what we do very well. And another one is similar to what Ricardo was discussing, an internal kind of leadership one, but I'll focus on the client one for what I see is weakness that maybe I overcompensate for is with clients, we are educating them on quite a bit of information. It's not necessarily what they do in their day job. So I tend to put too many words on the slide because in my mind, when they walk away with it, it needs to be able to stand on its own. But what that lends to is very wordy, very descriptive slides. So I think I'm overcompensating for them. Maybe they don't necessarily understand what we do, but I'm putting it in writing, and that doesn't lead to the most exciting slides.
Sure. Less is more, and we're going to really try to aim to get to that in many ways. And we're going to start, as I said, with the dimensional presentations model. Thank you so much. We want to, again, the word dimensional, as I would say, I'm often trying to evaluate people and say, give me more than just the facts. Like, people remember stories, people remember emotion, people remember simplicity in many ways with the presentation. My eyes glaze over when I hear somebody just start talking for more than 5 minutes on one slide. So we're really trying to get to something that's a little bit more dimensional. And the concept is, this is going to show you a whole model of what we're trying to build on, and it's an infographic, and you have a speech or a presentation or a message that you have or that you've been given that you need to get out there to your audience. So how do you do that? Well, I'm just going to get up and talk. Well, for the most part, people say, and this is where we're going to go, where we're going to try to get to with this, but with every one of these elements, has a little icon and something related to it. So we're gonna start with recognizing that it's important before you start diving into the presentation to say, what are you talking about? It's so important that you know early on, before just start putting a presentation together, that it's valuable to have your key goals and objectives defined, that it's clear that you're looking to get to the core, whether it's a training presentation, whether it's a motivational presentation, a sales deck, all of that. Clear early on to figure it out. And then early on, when you've been tasked with this presentation, to try to write a summary of the presentation so that you kind of know what we're really looking to go for. And then maybe you want to invent a clever title for yourself. If you're the presentation designer, to really help empower yourself, I think, and you're working with other people, really try to amplify your role to say, hey, I'm a presentation expert, or maybe I'm the presentationist, to help you. It's my job to help you to communicate with what you're trying to do. By a show of hands, how many of you here work directly one-on-one with other executives to help them with their presentations? So, okay, some of you, but not all of you. Off and on. Does the work mainly come into you guys, and you're just looking to do it from a directive to do something? I'm trying to find out. Yeah, Christopher, how do you guys work on presentations?
Yeah, I think Kristen King Weber just you said that you helped. I think David also, you help others with presentations. Maybe you want to give some experience.
Yeah, I mean, my understanding, at least coming into this, was it was kind of done in silos or separately. So like for instance, our paid media team would put together slides on their own and then present those. Client services had their own presentations, and there was templates that were shared, but I think there was a lack of consistency. I think from my perspective, being kind of a comms person, having some kind of design and communications background, right, I can provide advice and kind of not only just how to create an effective presentation, but how to design slides and how to make it more effective. And I've kind of provided that advice to various executives within the team, and I'm sure other individuals in the team have done that as well. But yeah, I think it just depends on the team, or depends on the person.
Got it. Good. Well, thank you. As we just said, at the center of this is you, but out there is your audience. And so it's so important, I think, early on, before jumping in and playing graphic designer, to analyze the audience. Who is this audience? Why are they there? Why do they want to listen to? What do they already know about the topic? And it's important to recognize this point. What do you want them to do as a result of your presentation? We're not here just to talk about stuff they already know and just present information, but we want them to step forward, learn more, do more, think differently, all of that. Is this a presentation that's meant to inform or inspire or entertain, or perhaps a blend of them all? And this is a great one. Are they ready to listen? So many times people just assume I'm going to go talk to my audience and they'll hear it. A lot of times they may have a closed mind, or not ready, or just in a different headspace. So it's so valuable to really try to connect with your audience early on and recognize that not everyone is in the same state of mind that you are, or others in your mind space, in your mind, might be. So therefore, it's really valuable to look at things from the perspective of your audience. So we start with facts and information in the presentation, and we have an inner hub. That blue hub that you saw briefly is the content hub, and all of these spokes add strength to it, like bicycle wheel. The more spokes that you have coming out, the more stable the bicycle wheel will be, and therefore your presentation will be more stable. So as each one of these elements flows in, you're going to see them pop in. You don't need to use every one of them in a presentation, but the more that you use, the more opportunities you have to create a presentation that goes beyond facts and information. And so facts and information, you obviously just want to put your stuff, but you also want to make your information intriguing. You want to inject information and data that people will remember, a trivial kind of point of data. Did you know that Marriott hotels use over 5 billion gallons of water every day, something wacky like that, whatever it might be, just to let people know and kind of give a tangent of unique aspect to it. And to that point, add flavor with facts. So the information need not be monotonous and boring, but perhaps you say something that is just keeps people listening and unique. But do it lightly, but do it recognizing that that this might not always go right with your audience. But at the same time, especially during today's time of COVID, this is why I'm saying flavor with facts can make your presentation more emotional, more memorable, more impactful. That's what we're trying to get for. And really write for your audience. Really, when we're looking to present, this is not all about me. I want you to hear it so that you know what we're talking about. And so really recognize that, and especially in an executive capacity. The second part is data and statistics. So many companies, and I'm sure your organization too, really has to deal with a lot of data and statistics, analytics, charts, graphs. How do you make this look good? How do you make the message stand out when you've got all of this information out there? So we want to say to leave out spreadsheets. So many people just pop that spreadsheet on the slide. I had one yesterday, and I said, you could put that spreadsheet on the slide, but maybe put it in a corner to show that the data is there, but let's chart out some of that data. Let's make a show where the data is going. Let's make a line graph, an area graph to show a trends. The spreadsheet shows that you've got the information, but an audience isn't going to be able to decipher that. So really try to show that you've got it if necessary, but really show what it means. That's the B point. Try not to be too in-depth or analytical in your talk. Your talk is really there generally as a high level to say, what does this data mean? Try to present your data creatively. We'll get into a lot of other samples in a little while about that. But how do you present your information more than just a drab text and data on the slide. Takes more time, but it'll result in great accolades and praise. Present your data in stages. So if you've got something, rather than throwing it all up on the slide, try to animate it in. Click 1, 2, 3, and 4. You can bring it in one part at a time. Maybe you've got a block that you want to cover an element, and then you, after every click, the block disappears. You can have an animation where a white block that's covering something disappears. So if you've got photos, this is one great way of bringing in elements, just covering something up and then removing it. And then obviously show and tell. Not all of your presentations need to be done in PowerPoint. You can simply say, hey, let me show you the bottle of water. I've drank half this water already. You know what that means? The other half is already in here. And that means that we're already in the process of moving and flowing and going. Your process should be going, some silliness like that, but it need not necessarily be something just on screen. A hyperlink. Hyperlinks are so terrific for clicking to something and then jumping to another website. We don't need to be stuck just in PowerPoint. I'll show you some examples of that later, but recognize that your presentation need not be exclusively PowerPoint. We could cut out of PowerPoint, jump around to different areas. And when we ever get back to the office, handouts for paper are great. This is where you would put your spreadsheets and your data. I've got these handouts for you guys to look at later, or maybe they could be looking at it while you're talking. So really look at this. Would Steve Jobs, when he was around, ever have done a spreadsheet up on slides? No, he would have really made it much more simple, and then the boardroom would have seen the analytics and the data on paper. So then we talk about case studies and examples. I think that this is so important to keep into a presentation to make it more rich, because people will remember the emotional component a whole lot more than they'll remember the data and the statistics. So we talk about that with the goal of reinforcing your information and your facts and your data with reality-based stories. Say something that's going to be emotional and can connect with your audience. People will look up and listen, right? I'm sure there was one time that I was giving a presentation, and this is an interesting point too, that I was giving a presentation, and it was mostly an Eastern, it was a crowd from overseas, and I looked down and none of them was looking at me. They were all looking at their phones, and I said I was really unsettled by this. But when I came back with a story, everyone looked up, and I was still not sure why they were not looking. They were looking down. Some of them had their eyes closed. And I told later on, Kevin, they listen to the data when they can absorb the information more clearly. It was a cultural thing that they kept their eyes closed, but that was a very interesting aspect, and I was a little thrown off by it. But now I understand that it's common for some people in a big presentation to not look directly at you. So where do you get these news? Where do you get these facts and reality-based stories, news stories, and websites? Try not to make it too absurd or extreme. Maybe you want to have a case study presentation. I think that this is with Marriott. I'm sure you've got a lot of presentations that just deal with case studies, how we did it, and what happened before and after. That kind of sample. Case study videos of something that happened. Try to inject other technologies into your presentations. Examples and demonstrations, again, are other ways of really making your presentation more enriched with just information. And then we got to ask, is it relevant? So many times we see things and I want to say, I got to show this graphic to you. I got to show this demo to you. And then I look back a few days later and it said, that was my ego getting involved. This really had nothing to do with them, so really try to make sure that if you're going to share something, that it hits the mark. Maybe you want to run it by a colleague or something. Make sure it's to the point, and relevant. So that makes that point there. The next point, visuals and PowerPoint. And this part we're going to dive into a little bit more, because this is really what I do professionally. People give me junk and I make it better. And so it was going to be its own section. Now it's kind of integrated into this, visuals and PowerPoint. And we take a lot of slides and we make them look better. How many slides like this have you seen before? Maybe stuff that you've done. It's a title, and then you've got legacy toxics, and then the created and grown, and then there's radon. So I look at this and say, hey, what can we do to make this better, to make this less text heavy? So recognizing this, and this is going to be a standard for everyone here to kind of follow. It need not be all about these toxins, but maybe we recognize that we've got a headline here and we've got 3 key sections. So with that, we come up with a new template, and then we talk about the 3 areas of contaminants and maintenance, and legacy toxics, those that are created and grown, and then there's radon. Let's talk first about legacy toxics. And so that one column on that first slide is now its own freestanding slide. In the background, we've got, this is wood, this is painted wood, a wood deck over here. And so that becomes the soft background over here, and all the text that was once shoved onto the slide becomes its own column of text on this page, bullet page. And then the next one, created and grown, there's a little mouse back there, and we've got all of these other types of topics that are related to created and grown. And then there's radon, and radon in the background, we've got this radioactive symbol, and then an example of what radioactive and radon can do. So really, it's this slide. If you're going to spend 5 minutes talking about this slide, you should be able to spend the same amount of time over these 4 slides. Does that make sense?
Yep. Hey, Kevin, I have a quick question, actually,
Yes.
real quick. I totally agree with all of this. I think when you're presenting, to simplify and have a single idea per slide, I think is more effective. Some feedback that I get sometimes is people use presentations not just for presenting to audiences, but also as like a resource to share, as like a PDF or an attachment. So they want to make sure that, the information they have is consolidated and readable, right? If someone just sees the slide on the page versus a presentation. So I'm just curious, kind of balancing those two interests.
I think it's, you got to recognize this is not a document. And if they're really looking for a document, the opportunity here for that kind of stuff, David, is to really kind of put your information here in the notes section here, or maybe make a separate piece. I think this is just an effort on your part to really kind of make this a more engaging one-on-one or dynamic experience. Your audience is going to remember it a whole lot better, and it's just a shift in the way we look at things. And there are presentations for handouts, and there are presentations for stage delivery. 2 different types of presentations, 2 different styles, and maybe that's the solution there, is to recognize that this is not just a one type of fix, but plenty of my stuff that I do is dense document type of stuff. But that's the key to it, is to have an executive summary, to look at some of this stuff as executive summary, and then detail slides. I've had plenty of presentations that are just high level, 20 slides, and then you dig down deeper, and that's the sort of stuff that's heavy. That could be like 100 or 200 pages of dense material. So I think to add that concept of executive summary to your higher level, beautiful looking slides, that's the key to getting it done that way.
Right. Thanks.
Yeah, like this, they were saying, well, this is an executive summary. I said, well, then you're going to need to split this up into 2 different slides. So we took this and said, hey, let's put this on one slide, and then this on the second one, because this is the message that they're talking about. And I've got other samples I'll share with you a little later on, but I think that's the idea, just to look at it differently. And this, the key to it, and someone brought it up earlier, how do we say less with more? How do we say less text? And this is the sort of stuff, this is also a cultural and organizational change that everyone's going to need to get used to, is that we look at things differently, the way we say text. So many customers and so many clients and people are used to looking at slides like this. This is boring, this is flat, this is not going to make you or the company stand out. So this is a quality policy. And then we talk about what Quest is doing, and then they've got these robust policies. So you're going to see in the next 4 slides a process of taking this slide from bland to better. And we say that what I want to do here, and one of my concepts, is I want to have a title up at the top that's not just a neutral title. Here's our quality policy. That's like a chapter in the book. I want this first section to be able to be merged with this title. I want that top quality policy to tell me something, that headline. And so my preference when I'm doing this stuff, try to say it in fewer than 10 words. So what I've done here, the next slide, is a quality policy focused on building strategic relationships. So let's go back. So we look at this, and this is so verbose. Quality Quest is focused on helping developing long-term strategic relationships with our global customers by consistently providing value-added engineering solutions through. And some of it's redundant, but if we look at this, the main point is that they're focused on building strategic relationships. And here's how we do it. You can say, here's how we do it, or the text itself is obvious. So then we say implementing and adhering to robust processes. Is it necessary for us to say implementing and adhering to, because you're going to be using robust processes, or you're going to be talking to that kind of thing. So this is where we're going to go from this after slide to this one. So looking at the words here and saying, where do I cut out the words? Look at yourself as an editor, focusing on the content here, ensuring appropriately skilled employees are adequately trained and provided with standard work. I'm just going to say better training and more work, or something like that. Yeah, training and keeping busy. Extract the content from that second sentence, from all the sentences. Continuously on the third bullet, continuously monitoring and improving performance through measurement of customer satisfaction. You look at that and say, I just say measure customer satisfaction, or performance improvement equals customer satisfaction. And the last one, I love this one, how we did this. Addressing all critical deficiencies by identifying root cause and instituting corrective actions. I said, critical deficiencies, let's identify on the root cause and correct the actions. So that's the essence of this. The same thing, now down to 3 slides, and then we go to this slide. So with that same headline, now we've got a great template, and we've turned that text, this amount of text, into smart art, and we fill the smart art with graphics. How does that work for you guys? So you can see this takes time, but with a few more practices, your role will be from just working in PowerPoint to being a presentation consultant, a communications expert. You'll be doing the graphic design work, as well as that's the right brain creative, as well as the left brain logical business component. And that's going to add value to you and what you can do professionally in any job, to look at things like this. So how employers are overcharged? It's the before slide. And the employer is overcharged on premium audit. Experience modification factor is incorrect or mismanaged. Employee injuries are not managed. And the first thing I say is that, it's a gloomy background, a gloomy template, so we're going to fix that. But I also don't like to repeat keywords. If I see it up there, I don't want to see it down here as well. So we talk about the employer is overcharged on premium audit. So let's take a look at this next slide. Well, here it is, just put into this template. So we've got that just brought in with smart art, with icons, with graphics. And then my point that I'm trying to get at is really reduce it by premium audit, experience modification factor, and mismanaged employee injuries. This is saying all the same stuff, just without the repeated keywords here. So there you go over there. I like to say that my headline is a sentence, a summary of the slide, and the supporting bullets are fragments, or are iconic short sentences, or standalones. So that's the way I look at it. That was a couple of years ago. Another way of presenting this slide. Okay, so we've got our three icons here. We've got employers are overcharged, the key word in the center of the page, overcharged, big red, and then with a background of a balance sheet set in the background over there. Those 3 solutions, or the 3 components, premium audit, modification factor, and employee injuries, are set just centered against that one balance sheet of overcharged concept. This nasty slide from over 15 years ago still reigns because the guy was a vice president for McDonald's, Tom Feltenstein. He passed away a little while ago, a couple of months ago. But he was a good guy, and all of his stuff was red and yellow. And like, Tom, you can't be doing this. So I said, let's take a look at this. This is talking about 60% of your marketing dollars should be sent inside the 4 walls. And we said 60% in a bold, big green, marketing dollars should be spent inside the 4 walls. So we didn't change his text, but we called out a couple of key phrases that were more dominant, and called them out in green with a light background, a simple restaurant put in the background with an angle, and nothing done in Photoshop, nothing outside of the norm that you could do here that you could not do on your own in PowerPoint. So it's really just a photo, your message up there, and the keywords with dynamic emphasis to key sizes of the percentage and the message. Another variation, here's what we did. We took a restaurant's photo and said 60% of your marketing dollars should be spent inside the 4 walls. This one was done I believe this was done a little bit in Photoshop, put a background and just put this over there. So he preferred this one over this. And when I'm designing slide graphics, I like to give my clients 2 graphics if I've got the time to give a variation on it. It really is very helpful. And then I'm able to get a good handle on which one they like more than the other. And we go with that. Warren County Community College in New Jersey has been a longtime client of mine, and they continuously give me junk. But I'm here to fix it up and take this and say, here's their Viper program, and I'm going to give them 3 separate slides. I said, I'm not going to change your text because the text is important, but I do want you to look at this as 3 separate slides, and this is the concept. I think it goes back to the days of 35mm slides where you had to have a certain number that you could fit into the carousel. Maybe you could only fit 40 or 80 slides, and it cost money to print these 35mm slides. So we still have to think in a conservative style here of really trying to jam it all on one slide, or maybe if I get it all on one slide, I'll get through the presentation faster. We are in a dynamic world where we can present as many slides as possible as long as we're able to talk through it in the same amount of time. And if you're going to say it here and you're able to say it here, keep it going. The audience will remember this stuff faster if you say it at one concept per page. This gloomy slide, our market is underinsured, uninsured, uninsurable, and their employer groups. And believe it or not, this is not an old slide. This is like 2 years old. So they're still doing junk like this. And we said, let's lift it up. Let's do this with smart art and a light background. Light backgrounds have become real popular in vogue. And this is smart art, turning that text with 4 icons. I'll show you more about how to do smart art in a little while, but this kind of concept. This is a great slide. It's about 10 years old, but I used to work with Office Depot a lot in South Florida, and they talk about their commitment to supplier diversity. So we've got their mission, their vision, and their 3 strategic objectives. The mission has a colon, the vision doesn't. This doesn't have a period over here. More than that, it is done in Garamond or Times Roman font. This is great if you're printing something and handing it out, but guys, this was meant to be a presentation before an audience. And so I really encourage people not to use Times Roman or Garamond fonts. What are they called? They're called serif fonts. And what we want to go, the edges on the letters are called serifs, and we want to go with a sans serif font like Arial or Tahoma, or maybe Marriott has its own style of graphics. So here we've kept this, this is kind of a good use of serif font up on the top. I think that they wanted it that way. And then the headline up there and the body text. Here's their mission, here's their vision, and here are the 3 strategic objectives. It is a couple of years old. I thought about getting rid of it, but it's still a good, valid slide because long before smart art, these concepts were here. 1 slide, 2 slides, 3 slides. And people say this is just much brighter, much lighter. You don't need to have the lights off in the room, and you move through at a quick pace. If I'm not going to be talking to this stuff here, why even put it in there? So that's the concept. Next slide. This is kind of more of a recent slide deck of what we've done. This is also for Warren County College, and the sort of stuff that I would encourage all of us to sort of integrate into the style of the way we're working. So here are their presidential policies. And here's what we've done with them. We have used smart art and we have found some icons and put that against a new graphic. They had a graphics designer work to create a more contemporary background. They're going out to their leadership congress, I think in San Francisco. And we just kind of created those graphics with icons. Here's how you're going to do it. So let me jump to the next slide, make this into an actual graphic. Are you guys able to see this all right, Chris? Okay, so I've put this text here. And what I like to do here, a lot of times when I'm working on this stuff, I will say, let's duplicate this slide. I'll say select all. You know, a lot of people will say, hey, well, first of all, a lot of people will just say, let me go here and create smart art graphic. Ooh, hold on. So I'm able to create a smart art graphic. Sometimes I'm able to create a smart art graphic. I got a plugin here. You know, I think if I go here, I'm able to do it like this and just start off typing my smart art. But I'm also able to, so you can create smart art from the top and scratch, or right click and say convert to smart art. So here's the wow factor, and I'm able to go through all of this. And really, a lot of times it doesn't show up at first what I want, but this picture caption list is really where I'm trying to go. And then I just pull it in, holding down the shift and control key. I don't know if we got enough time to go into keyboard commands this one, but by holding down actually if I hold down just the side, it's pulling in from one side. But if I hold down control while I'm moving from the center handle, it will move it in from both sides. And this is really what I want to do here. And then, so this is my smart art. And then the next step would be to bring in icons and graphics like this. And a lot of times these are set to images. So if I go here and I go to my other window and say, hey, here's my media, and go, drive D media, icons and logos, and I scroll down, here's what's going to be a problem. I'm gonna take this and bring it into point to right over here, and cut it and paste it right over here, and it's going to fill the size. This is a problem when you're trying to paste things in here or click once and insert pictures. So what I would do with smart art after we've created it is right click and say convert to shapes. So then it's no longer smart art that I can modify, but it is a placeholder of graphics that I can simply use these items as backgrounds. I can go back to this icon here and this type of image, shrink it down, Control Shift Alt, bring it in from this perspective and move it right over here. So that's just one way, real quick way of taking a list and turning it into something. Does that make sense, Deborah? Pretty straightforward. I hope this is nothing. I hope this is new and nothing like, oh, I know this crap already. But you know, so we want to go now to this section, wrapping up this section with the main point here, that is avoid all unnecessary words that you can find to help make the page more appealing and easier to understand. So how can we say this just right to the point? How can we say this? Anyone want to raise a hand or try to get a point out there? Let me see if in a conversation, who's going to be able to type this in three words on how to say this. I want to see it typed out. Bringing this down to the core essence of what this is saying. Can we type it in if we could still do that? Less is more. That's one thing. Avoid unnecessary words. David Pinkham, because you saw it before. That's great.
I couldn't remember or not if I saw it, but that was my guess. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it, kids. So yeah, that's it. And we had something, less is more. That's great, but that's changing the words there. So I really just try to say, trim out the fat, the unnecessary stuff, and so that's it for visuals. Let's talk a little bit more about live demos, websites, and activities. And so live demos, you want to obviously work on your PCs as we're doing here. This is a great way to really get your audience involved. Maybe you want to have some audience role play or engagement, ask some questions. When was the last time you did this, or how did you do that? Those questions, you're not there just to talk and show something as a one-way type of thing. When I say model models. I'm talking about if something is really a critical type of thing, and maybe especially like a sales type of presentation, bring in a professional trainer and speaker. There are people who are out there, more in a sales capacity, whose job is to look good and sound good. That's all they do, and really talk in and present something. I'm here to talk about our new generation of hotels. Bonvoy, you can really get somebody rather than having somebody just talking on screen that's just within the organization. But models can play a great role in a corporate presentation when the time is right and it's appropriate. Get your audience involved and engaged. That's what I'm trying to do, especially now more than ever. We're really, the computer's a barrier, but how do we do this to connect with people, ask questions, and get your audience involved? Here's a website. I would whoops. Supposed to replace this with Marriott's site, not the EEOC, but that would be the idea that we want to say, hey, let's take a look at our website here, and we're certainly able to just jump up and go to into bringing the screen. We've got to do that, by shifting the screen of what you're sharing. I'm not going to do it now, but the concept is that you really want to not just share a PowerPoint slide, but really the website as well, if you're able to. There's website support software. Maybe you want to do a video, and you want to use either a video of a portion of a website and make a demo of how to do it. Then you would use Camtasia Snagit. If you want to do some real editing of a slide or a page that you saw on the website, consider getting more skilled with Photoshop, or maybe making your own video in Adobe Premiere. So these are some software tools that are out there, not just for websites, but obviously for all kinds of graphics design. By a show of hands, how many folks use Photoshop or Adobe Premiere on a regular basis? So not everyone. Interesting. So I really would. Yeah.
Yeah, Kevin, we don't use Photoshop. I know others in Marriott do, but Chris and I use an online tool called Canva, which is actually pretty convenient. It's kind of a more user-friendly Photoshop to create graphics and things, which is how we create a lot of our brochures and some of the more complex slides. So we do have a software available that our team can kind of do. But I think I don't think most people use Photoshop, though. I don't believe.
Okay, it's a good tool and more affordable than ever. I think it's really good if you're going to be really looking to do more graphical work. But then again, PowerPoint itself has really gotten to be pretty strong in terms of its photo editing abilities. Interactive participation is another way of making your presentations more dimensional. Maybe you're talking about something, but why not show it? Maybe if you're show and tell, this is also something that maybe you guys can do on a weekly basis. Really, as we're separated more than ever, take a moment and maybe highlight somebody and say, hey, why don't you show us something in your home? Take us on tour of your home office, something like that, or show something. Really want to make this a little bit more of an emotional experience that people can remember, rather than just getting in and talking. We don't have that connection with people that we used to have, so we want to make it more enriching as possible. Questions and answers are another way of making things more interactive. We'll get to some of those in a little while. Small groups and reporting. Hey, you guys run off, and why don't you talk about this portion of your presentation and come back and give us your thoughts about what you thought about this, so that you have little subgroups that go out and then come back and talk about something about their topic of conversation. This also promotes involvement and improved memory. We're not just having a one-way conversation, but we're having an engaging dialogue. And to that point, some other activities. You want to dumb down your presentation. You want to try to make it into a 1-minute summary. Maybe you want to look at what you're saying as if you're talking to a 10-year-old or a new employee. So many times people look at their presentations from their perspective, the expert perspective, but it's so important at a high level to be able to talk about what we're discussing, and for us to know what we're talking about at a high level. Like, come home at the end of the day and let's talk to our significant other about what it is and how you would explain it to somebody new. Here's another cool example of an activity. I'm going to give you 4 separate topics. One of them isn't real. I want you to buzz in when you hear something that is not the fact. And And so that is, another type of activity that really works well, or just chime in, raise your hand. This is probably better for when you're at the back in the office again. And there are so many other phone games, technology-based games, just to add some richness and dimension to your presentations with different activities. So with that, we move. Wow, we are on quotations and testimonials a little bit behind, but we'll get through this. We'll do it the right way. Quotations and testimonials are additional ways of adding dimension to your presentation. So many times I've seen presentations that just start off, and I think it's just so valid to recognize that a quotation in a speech, an article, a book, or a presentation is like a rifle in the hands of an infantryman. It speaks with authority. That's by Brendan Behan. And the value of a quote and a testimonial can really add richness to your presentation. We want to inject it like a third person perspective on any topic. It shows that you've done more research more deeply with the presentation. It adds credibility and an authority to your presentation. And you can find quotes all over the web, like from movies. Maybe you want to integrate your talk with a movie theme. You can find other quotes that have such relevancy here. And I would just say one or two, maybe at the beginning or the end. I'm going to show you something that we did recently. Here's a quote by Stephen Covey. The main thing is to keep the main thing, and that's the main point here. Is that we really want to just make sure that the quote is relevant to the presentation. Ultimately,
hey, Kevin.
Yeah.
Oh, just quick question here, Paula. Do you want to unmute and ask this question yourself? I think it's a good one.
Sure, yeah, this is something that I encounter a lot when I'm giving presentations. Sometimes I like to just check in on the audience, see if they're getting what I'm saying, or even ask like a leading question. And sometimes I encounter crickets. No one really wants to speak up or, offer some advice. So do you have any tips on how to avoid that, or, just work through it if it does happen?
I think you work through it. If it happens, it can slow me down, and really, I think people are sometimes afraid of speaking up. I think it's valuable what we're doing here to have David and Christopher sort of as co-presenters, where they can call on someone. And I also like to say we're not done with this first section yet. So really recognize if you've got the time. I would do it just a couple of times throughout the whole presentation. It's a lot easier to do in person when you're really looking at people face to face than online. But and I was trying to figure out even before this thing started, how do we get the other 32 people? I'm only looking at 9 of you here in Teams. I would love to see all of you. Do you know how to do that, if that's possible to do? David?
Not if you're presenting, I don't think.
Okay.
There are other views, but I don't want to mess up the presentation at this point.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think it rotates people in and out, though, doesn't it? You've seen different people.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's even more confusing. You looked very different just a few moments ago. But Yoda says, show your work in math, you must. And this is a slide that we put up before, an analytics slide. I think the upside here is that really we want to just add some levity, some social connection here. And of course, Yoda is wonderful. So we really want to bring him to the value of money, of finances and analytics. And so I'll just jump past that. Metaphors, similes, and analogies. This is also so valuable in terms of really adding a little bit more richness to your slides about, how do you talk like like love is a battlefield, Bob is a couch potato, baby, you're a firework. You say these things. These are metaphors that are great to refer to another thing, and it just helps add some richness to the presentation. A simile, she's as cute as a button. Maybe it's like shooting fish in a barrel. He's as nutty as a fruitcake. You get to say these things after a while, and it makes your style, your persona kind of shine through. It's a different way of speaking. I don't do it a whole lot, but I think as I've gotten older, the wisdom kicks in. You hear these things that your parents, your grandparents might have said over time, and you inject it here and there, and it adds a level of warmth and humor and persona to the presentation. An analogy is great. These are great in business presentations when you have to compare two different concepts and ideas, such as life is like a race, just as a sword is the weapon of a warrior, a pen is the weapon of a writer. And I would say a movie is the roller coaster ride of emotions. So if you can find an opportunity with one of your presentations that's a concept that's really hard to get your arms around, try a simile, a metaphor, or analogy. This will be very helpful in the message and the content. Humor and anecdotes. Uh, I'm a funny kind of guy, and I suspect that you guys are too. There's a time and a place for humor. You have to feel it out and see how that goes. Humor can really unite your audience. It can connect the dots of your presentation. The effectiveness of humor. You really don't want to say something that's a hot topic. So you stay away from politics and religion and everything else. Something trash humor. When to use humor? I think if it's something that's going on in the world and you can put a spin on it, to put a little bit humor, funny. You guys probably have done it with one or two of your colleagues and employees. It builds unity, and it helps unite people and warms them up to you. It's helpful for you to view your audience as friends, and you just want to stand there, settle in, smile, and speak. I say that humor is better usually when you're giving a speech rather than a presentation. So if you got like a 45-minute keynote, there's a better value of using humor than you would find in a typical business presentation, because we got to get down to business. That's really what it is. The next one is personal stories. This is probably the most valuable component to your presentation. Would be injecting some personal stories about what you've seen. You're going from facts to feelings. People will remember this component of your presentation a whole lot more when you're just talking emotionally or something that happened. It adds that element of emotion. It might be, it's got to be memorable and relevant. Maybe something that a presentation went south. It's something that you didn't work out right. But when you say something that's personal and relevant, people will remember it, and you can even shut off the slide. I want everyone to look at me and tell this story for a moment. You basically just say, let's stop sharing. I want everyone to hear this story about how this just didn't work out and what's going on, or even tell something that might be even a little bit more unfortunate, talking about the difficult times that we're all going through with COVID, and just how vital it is that we all unify, that we all wear our face masks, and that we do what's necessary to stay together and positive in mindset as a company, as a nation. So that sort of thing. And then hopefully your screen goes back to life quick. So yeah, with that I'm saying, make sure you got different types of stories. Maybe it's the underdog, the hero, the past, and it helps us to act. And the value of
Hey, Kevin.
Yeah.
I think the screen's black on. Oh, there we go. Okay, we're back.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, the final portion here is it helps us to act, and that is the final piece, a call to action or the next steps. So many people say, and that's the facts, and then we walk away and we close up the meeting. But it's important that you motivate your audience to act or to be more involved, summarize the presentation, what we've spoken on, all of that, and ask them what they can do differently in the presentation. How will you measure success? How will this presentation work? What are you guys going to do differently? All of that, and certainly making sure that they know how to contact you or where they can find the presentation. Just don't say, hey, we're done, thank you so much, and walk away. So there's really should be a call to action. And with that, we have a slide at the end that sort of shows all the different resources that are available. You can always find me through presentationteam.com and getting in touch with David and Christopher and that whole group. So then we go through the delivery of the presentation. I'm going to go through this a little bit faster because I think this is less about delivering your presentation. There are tips on where to do that, at Toastmasters, but it's just so important that you have a good appearance. Don't just show up, especially online, even if you're at home, in a shirt and a t-shirt and shorts. It's still business. It's still the workplace. Throw on a nice suit, get yourself cleaned up, showered. Appearance matters. you'll feel more confident also. Make sure that you try not to speak, that you try not to read from the screen. You want to speak your message, and that you really want to be confident about what you're saying. Get that audience interaction going. You know, fear of public speaking cuts wages by 10%. All of these elements and the facts about getting more comfortable with audience interaction. It tells talk less to engage your audience more. You know, this is the key point that I had. Adding facts and figures by a presentation can increase your audience retention by 20%. So the facts and figures matter, and ask your audience, did you know this? That kind of thing. Body language and gestures, the value of gestures. It shows that you're not just talking to a flat screen. You might as well have a photo up here. So really try to, especially here, move your arms more, point more, getting comfortable with gestures. It'll take time to do it. It conveys emotion and passion. The power pose, if you get up there, you want to stand, and really the power pose is kind of spreading your legs out with your arms at your side. It's if you search for power pose, you'll see a lot of examples about what I'm talking about. You guys still able to see me? What's that, David? Visual of me when I'm talking on screen?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Eye contact. I think that this is so valuable with the eye contact. It can improve delivery. It will add emotional impact and provide better emotional connection with your audience. And there are all kinds of tips for improving eye contact. Just look up at the camera lens right over there. So vital. Pacing and pausing. It adds variety. You want to slow down. You want to speed up. Gets your audience involved. Here are a bunch of different tips at this website over here. Simple sentences. The way that we write is different from the way that we present. And so it's vital that we really work to get the brain thinking about simplicity in hearing things. We don't want to have a run-on sentence being told to us. We want to chop it up into different segments. The way that people present for the news is like writing for a 7th or 8th grade newsletter, news level, brain level of education. So it's different from written. Listen to newscasters, Nora O'Donnell, the way that these newscasters speak, rather than one big long sentence, they chop it up into shorter segments. No crutch words or double clutching. A crutch word is when we say so with that, that would be something that you would become more aware of in Toastmasters, and anyone who says ums and ahs can weaken the presentation a little bit. So really different ways of cutting back on your crutch words, because it makes you sound like you don't know what you're talking about, or less confident about what you have to say. A clutching is when you kind of do that, when you say stutter your words a little bit. So that kind of thing. A memorized intro and closing is so valuable to kick off a presentation, and it can really help kick things off and just try to get that, rather than saying, okay, we're here today to start talking about this and this. Rhetorical questions are important, aren't they? Don't you know the value of rhetorical questions, everyone? I'm sure you do. So rhetorical questions is a great idea, because it will help get your audience listening, paying more attention, and making sure that they're paying attention more to your presentation. Repetition is so critical when you're delivering your talk, because you may have some key points that are important, and repeating it, saying it again 2 or 3 times, we're losing 50% of our membership. 50%, guys, that is a lot of the people that are stepping away. What are we going to do? We have to get rid of those numbers and turn 50% whatever it is. Just repeat it so that people listen with passion. And we talk about vocal variety. So vocal variety, you may want to say something a little bit high. You may want to say something a little bit lower, up and down, slow it down, speed it up, all different ways of saying your words. Again, all different classes and time that we could spend on talking about this inner hub of delivery and how to say your presentations better. I would encourage everyone to look at Toastmasters, get out there and speak more, even if you're not giving the presentation. By getting out there and practicing your presentation, saying your manager's presentation out loud will give you a better perspective on how this is going to be delivered, and give you a greater understanding and confidence about presenting in general. The third component component of this model is the enhancers, all of the different things that you can do to enhance your presentation. And we start about talking about practice. So get out there after your presentation is done. You want to practice it. Be prepared for it. And preparation and practice are different. Practice, I'm talking get out and say it, but preparation, make sure that everything in your presentation deck is animated and that you're ready to go. Christopher and David got on with me a little bit before we started this, just to make sure everyone was ready and prepared. You know, if something wasn't right, we would have been as adequately ready as possible. They had another version of the presentation, so just be prepared. Something can go wrong. Talk about passion and experience. Be passionate about what you're speaking about, even if it's something straightforward and boring. The passion will come through, and that will translate to getting people to notice you. Your experience about doing this, even if you're just starting off, your experience should be explained as to what you're doing and how good you are, and never say I've just started off and I don't know what I'm doing. Just show your confidence and competence in this. That's the next one. Confidence, you should be coming through. And well-being. By well-being, I mean get a good night's sleep, eat well, exercise in the morning to give you the energy, the clarity, the focus, the ambition, and don't just take the podium or the presentation online and just feel nervous and sleepy. By taking care of yourself with these 6 enhancers, you will feel more confident and competent and ready to present and deliver a much more enriching and dimensional presentation. So there you go with that section. Any questions in this area? Because that is the key part to doing this, and I'm think that this,
Yeah, I think
just take a few of these and your presentation can come out a lot more powerfully.
Thanks, Kevin. I know you're going to talk about this as well, but I think some of that preparation and practice tips I think apply to virtual presentations as well as just in person, right? I think we tend to just kind of throw away the preparation and practice when it's a virtual presentation because it's you're not standing in front of people and it's maybe less intimidating. But I think it does have an impact on the effectiveness of the presentation. So I think all those things apply whether it's in person or virtual.
Terrific. Okay, thanks. We're going to jump around and talk a little bit about breath and presentations, breathing techniques for better presentations. And this is perhaps one of the most valuable, worthwhile, feel-good pieces that I've really ever done about presentations. And you would say, well, what does breathing have to do about creating better presentations? I also have a YouTube video about it that I put together a month ago. The YouTube video is about 10 minutes to 11 minutes long. You could watch it later on. My quick presentation here is just a couple of slides through. So I was giving a present, and the reason I came up with this is that I was giving a presentation and I felt myself getting more and more tired and sloppy through my delivery, and I realized that I really didn't exercise. I'm not taking good care of myself. I'm asthmatic. I've been asthmatic since a kid, and I just need to recognize that the lungs feed our mind, feed our body, and this is why it's just important for us to continuously work to feed our mind and body with good food, as well as take a good deep breath. A lot of people are nervous when they're presenting, and so breath and presentations are vital together. Research proves that breathing techniques can reduce stage fright. You get up, if you're nervous, just try to take a couple of steps back and take a deep breath like that. And as I just said, exercise, eat well, breathe better, and you can present like a pro. But not just present, you can create better. Just, I find myself being able to write better and find my graphics better if I'm just well exercised. I've just reached a middle-age milestone of 50. I still can't believe it, but I'm recognizing that I have to work harder to stay on my game, and exercise and breathing has been a key part of that. And maybe you guys can identify with that too. I do yoga a lot, but not as much because of COVID, but the importance of yoga is mind, body, spirit all together. When you're breathing, come up with a good breathing technique, activate the diaphragm for calmer breathing, and focused presentations. Hey, I'm nervous, but all you need to do is just take a deep breath, let it go, and you'll be able to present a lot more confidently and clearly. Basic breathing techniques can help you gain awareness and oxygenate your body. That's what I'm saying. The lungs are an organ that feeds our brain, feeds our body. And the importance, it's not just our parasympathetic breathing of just in and out. It'll work. But if you're focused on trying to breathe a little bit more rich, deeper, you will feel the payback. Just take a few minutes every day and just try to breathe deeper. And it will translate to sharper thinking and delivery. So a practical breathing advice for daily life and better presentations. You can find different tips online. You can find even people at gyms and workout centers will help you to recognize the value of breathing. And Thich Nhat Hanh, the Tibetan monk and teacher, says that breath is the bridge which connects life to consciousness, which unites your body to your thoughts. Whenever your mind becomes scattered, use your breath as the means to take hold of your mind again. So, anyone want to comment on this? That anything that a thumbs up or a message in the chat, or just chiming in and saying anything about how you've been able to find exercise or breathing helping you with your presentations and your work in general.
Laura, you want to share verbally as well?
Sure. I just put in the chat that this month I'm doing a 30-day yoga series, and it's specifically focused on breath. So each day, different breathing techniques. If anyone wants to look up YouTube for Yoga with Adrienne, it launched at the beginning of January.
Yeah.
It's great.
Congratulations on that. And have you been able to see, we're not going to yoga just to work out and feel better, but how is it translating in your daily life?
Yeah, it's actually really been helpful. I'm only a few days in, but just focusing on different breath techniques and being able to focus on breathing versus focusing on everything that's happening around me, because I'm doing yoga with kids in the house and noise, and really going like inward, I think, is teaching me relaxation techniques that I can use.
Absolutely. Well, namaste. And this is not just disconnected. There is a whole connection between breath and life and clarity on everything. Well, good deal. Thanks so much for making it back. And now we're going to go into this section. As soon as COVID started, I said, I think this is going to be a sea change, a shift in the way people present. And so I came up with an article and now a series of presentation series about top tips for amazing web-based presentations. So what we've got here is 4 separate sections. We have technical, we have graphics, we have audience, and content, something like that. So let's start with this technical component here. And the main point here is that when we're doing a web-based presentation or any presentation, it's valuable to be confident or familiar and practiced with your technology. Familiar, confident, and practiced. This means that you don't just get on and say, oh, I've never done this before. I'm not a technical person. I don't know what I'm doing. I hate doing these web. You got to be confident and come across like you're in charge and know your stuff. And even if something goes south, you really got to be as prepared as possible. We'll talk about that in a bit. But Teams is a complex tool, a platform, and David and Chris and I were on a little earlier just to make sure everything was good. How many of you have ever seen something that just that doesn't work out right because people are just so unprepared? Yeah, right. So that's where the value of this comes in. I like to encourage people to use a computer rather than a tablet or a phone. It's pretty cool that you can conduct a meeting and talk with someone around the world from your handset or phone. But the reality is that your computer and the platform for Teams or Zoom has a lot more muscle than the tablet, and the ability to type in. You can do a lot more with this. So I encourage everyone to use a tablet, or rather a computer rather than a tablet. Audio matters. Invest in a headset or professional microphone because you really want to sound like you're a pro. Maybe if you're talking with your cousins or family, you don't need to use this, but this is business. This is the business of the 21st century. Here we are. And so this is the way we're doing it, and it's valuable to look like you're an expert in your field. Make sure your camera is well positioned. The Goldilocks camera positioning, you don't want to be too far, you don't want to be too close. just try it just right so that you're really just everyone's here is pretty good, but I'm sure you've seen I see a couple of people that have some real nice headspace, but it works. It's good. Just if you're on camera, the presenter, really try to do what's necessary to make yourself look like the expert in your field. Mute your audience. You guys have done that. We've got Zoom on the right side and Teams on the left, and this will allow you to kind of mute, cut out the background noise, the sound effects, and kids screaming in the background. And if you're the MC, you're able to really tune in who you want to speak when you want to hear from them. So that's valuable to mute your audience. It's also valuable to stay near your router or connect by Ethernet. So, plug it in. If you've got the ability to plug right into your router, you're going to have a much better bandwidth and connection, and you won't have video that's choppy or cuts out, all of that, and you're able to probably stream your video and your presentation a lot more effectively. I haven't asked, but is everything going okay over here? Good, because I've got a router right outside the office over here. It's so valuable to store your files locally and have your links ready to go. A lot of people say, well, I'll just get this presentation off the web. When I say store your files locally, I mean on your C drive, maybe on your desktop. The reason for doing that is that if you're looking for the presentation, it takes bandwidth and effort to pull it in over the web, where if you've got it locally on your laptop, it won't be nearly as taxing on the Wi-Fi to transmit your signal as well as transmit the presentation. So keep it locally and have your links ready to go. And that I mean, that everything is ready to click on and ready to so that you don't have to go hunting for them. If bandwidth is an issue, when you're chopping in and out, I can't hear you, that kind of silliness, shut off your video for an audio only experience or dial in. The main thing is really your presentation, and even though it really wouldn't be a great thing here where visuals matter, but the business of the day it needs to get done. And so I'm saying, let's not screw around with our presentation visuals. Let's just, I see that we're not having a good connection. Let's all just shut off the video and let's just connect by phone, that kind of thing. If something really does go tragically wrong, consider a backup plan or a fill-in person and be a leader. Let's try to just cut to the chase. This isn't working right. I'm sorry this isn't going well. Hey, David, can you talk for a moment? And all of this stuff, just another plan like that. That you can just say, look to somebody for help when if your laptop is crashing, just make sure that you've got somebody. And we talked about this. Chris and David and I said, hey, if something needs to go wrong, one of you guys can talk over for a few minutes. If I needed to reboot my laptop or something like that, be a leader. Arrive early and send out invites at least 10 minutes ahead. More for people who are doing webinars and webcasts, but a lot of people don't remember this stuff. We're so busy in today, and it's just so valuable to really get online and send out one last reminder to say, I'm here, hoping to see you in the next, at 9:30 or whenever you would be doing this, whatever it would be. So that's it for some technical ideas. Here are some points for content. So it's valuable, and this is going to be a little repetitious of what we just talked about in the dimensional presentations. But when you're kicking a presentation off, don't just start designing graphics. It's so important that we define our goals and objectives, and that we're clear with our clients, we're clear with ourselves, we're clear in the outline of the presentation. What are we trying to achieve? Is it informational? Is it inspirational? Is it informative? Is it training? Is it sales? All of this stuff. And what are the key points? And how much time do I have? So be very clear on that so that you're not just walking your way through the presentation and trying to examine it all at early on. I used to have and I'll let you see it. I used to have like a 4-page questionnaire that I would ask a lot of questions when people would come to me for a potential presentation. And, what do we want this thing to look like? How many points are you trying to cover? What do they know already? So, be a questionnaire. My background is journalism, and I apply that all the time when I'm starting out a presentation so that I can help ensure that the presentation, I'm not caught by the surprise at the end, and we're able to be as best prepared going through it as possible. And all of you guys look to that role as look at yourself as the authority in helping put it together. Ask the questions. Your client may not know, but if you ask enough questions, it'll help them to look at the presentation a little bit more effectively. To that point, know your audience. Who are they? What are they trying to do and say? We really want to make sure that they're as ready as you are. Aim for a smooth takeoff and landing. Like we said, a good prepared introduction and story at the beginning. And how are we going to wrap this up? You know, it'd be awful if I had to say, well, I'm sorry I didn't get to that, and it's been good talking with you, and just take off like a couple of well, we won't go there, with a couple of friends that I've had, you know, that kind of thing. You know, just get ready to summarize the whole presentation. Make your meeting purposeful, valuable, and worthwhile. How many, like a kid going out to play as Superman, a superhero for the day. They go out into the field with a purpose that they're going to take over the world. And it's so important that you do that also with your presentation, that it's clear that these are the points we're going to cover. It's not just talking about topics. Just here's our goals. This is why we're here. I have my partner, Rudy. It's tragic. He spends nearly a third of his work time, 40 hours a week. He probably spends about 15 to 20 hours in meetings, all these meetings. He's like, Kevin, it's just so unnecessary, and I just say push back maybe one day, tell him that what is the point of this? Where are we going with this? I think people miss each other. They miss the need they feel a need to interact with each other, and it can still be done, but time matters. And so I think that it's so valuable for us to be making our presentations succinct, to the point, and meaningful, and yet compassionate as well. Research and planning is so valuable. And what we want to really do here is just make sure that you've done your homework, and that you've got good planning here for everything, and that you really have you're not just coming up and talking about something that you really don't know what you're talking about. So do your homework is my point here. It's important that you involve your audience through interactive activities. We've done it already, such as questions, polls, trivia, and games. I would love to have had, a couple of, we can raise our hands here, everyone with me on this one, raise your hand if you know what I'm talking about. That sort of simplicity will just make sure that absolutely keep those hands raised, and making sure that everyone is listening and not just following or falling asleep or playing something else on their monitor. We talked about some of these other ideas. Do you guys want to talk about how is the cultural reflection? If we were to say, let's have a trivia game or some other poll taken in one of your meetings, how would that go over, David? The culture of this type of stuff, these interactive activities.
Totally. I think internally, we have a pretty engaging group that's willing to participate. So I think internally that would be effective. I think I would love to do more of this externally, right? With our hotels. I mean, we're not doing currently, like when we have these webinars, there's no video, right? It's just us talking. So it's kind of hard to be more engaging, but I'd love to incorporate that more externally as well.
Sure. And it pays off. People will remember it, and it's the best that we can do to unite us during these times. It's so important, as we're doing today, to record your meeting and make it available after the events. Not everyone may be available. Maybe you may have forgotten something. Maybe you want to reference it. Maybe you want to sell it. If you got a side business, so many times you might want to be putting these points together. And I'm writing a book, and I said, sometimes I might be saying the content better than I might be writing it. I would love to be able to record this material to hear what I say, or just get up and start speaking about your presentation content. So recording is valuable. Zoom has started automatically recording, and I can't figure out how to automatically stop it. That's my big challenge for the last 2 weeks. Screen sharing. You can send in your chat window maybe some hyperlinks to some videos and some web pages. You don't all need to have it. We're talking about screen sharing and hyperlinks. So basically I'm saying, hey, we're looking at our PowerPoint now, but I could also share a different screen. I could also in the chat window say, hey, check out this web page, or here's a link to that YouTube video that I talked about. All different things like that. So consider the value of going beyond PowerPoint and leveraging the chat window here, as we've been doing. This is the dimensional presentations model. Once again, all fixed up and everything that you can do to make your presentation go beyond facts to dimensional with dimensional elements. So I think there are 36 different components on here, and every one of them can add a level of richness to your presentation. This one, more than ever, is so vital. Connect, inspire, and speak from the heart. These are tricky times that we're going through. Many of you may have lost somebody to COVID or suffered from it. My brother and his family were affected by it in South Florida, and we're all thinking differently and not knowing what to say. But this is more time for us to really reach out and do what we can as managers, as friends, as leaders, to really connect with others and speak from the heart. This is, people might say, well, that's just personal information, and it might be, but at the same time, it's going to help connect you. This is at least my style, and what I've heard from other leaders, out there, that this is really, you're not there just to give data and information. You're really there to connect and help. You and exchange information, and if you're able to do it in a more human way, it's going to make a greater difference. Then we go into delivery. The delivery of your presentation online is so vital because, a lot of people think, hey, I'm just going to get up and speak in front of the camera, but it's more than that. We want to have you look at the camera, not at the screen. So many people, even though you guys are over here, it's just so much more valuable to consider yourself like a newscaster. I'm talking to the screen right now, and by looking at the camera, you'll have a deeper connection with your audience rather than just looking somewhere else or looking at your phone when you're chatting. And it also creates a bond with your audience and you, and also keeps you focused. Be focused yet flexible. Like this guy here, really, the ability to kind of jump around to your presentation if something doesn't go right, the importance of being able to do different things at different times. Say, maybe we'll take that section, maybe we'll take a break now, whatever it is. It's so vital that we be malleable and flexible in these times. Encourage audience participation and play the role of director. We talk about you're running the meeting, and you're not just there to say your stuff, but really to help facilitate the meeting and integrate conversation, raise questions. David and Christopher are helping me as the director in this one, but it's really make it into a full experience for you and your audience. It's also valuable to make a co-host, and you can have two people on time. This is with Zoom, but that is also really effective. Like on newscasts, you see whatever, a guy and a girl balancing the report. It's not just one person, but it keeps the presentation on the newscast going when they have two speakers going. So that might also be another way that you create your presentation a little bit more dynamic, by having a co-host of the presentation. One person might speak on one specific topic, or alternating slides, all of that. Have you guys ever done that?
Kind of like we've done videos where it's been conversations. Like we did one of the videos this week where I interviewed one of our SVPs, and I think that was fairly effective and good content. Again, like if we're doing live presentations, though, I'd love to incorporate more things like this.
Sure. A co-host, and it also will empower you guys to collaborate and put the idea together and make it a little bit more engaging. And you might have your fan club, and she might have her fan club, and you guys all meet. Or maybe it might be some sort of battle. However you do it, I think we just have to be a little bit more creative in today's world to make web meetings more than just getting in front of a web camera. Use short sentences and simple words. As we talked about before, the way we speak online is different or for presentations, different from the way we write. People will remember the words. People will pay attention more because we can only handle so much in our heads. So that's the upside here of short sentences and simple words. Valuable to be respectful of people's time and schedules. So really, when we're coming up to a close, try not to run beyond the certain time frame, and just do it and make sure that it's all wrapped up, and other people can come back to it if needed. avoid crutch words. We talked a little earlier about this, but crutch words are words like and seriously, honestly, actually, words that don't really have any meaning. They just crutch and prop up your thoughts when they're absent. So really pay attention to some of these points. And if you ever join a Toastmasters club, you will see people that have a buzzer that will buzz people for saying too many things too many times. They say is an counter, who's someone who says and so that's really the upside to really avoiding crutch words. You'll come across like much more as an expert in your field, that you know what you're talking about. And even if it's and instead just say nothing. Just try to eliminate, if I don't know what to say, just pause and just get your thoughts together. Slow down and gather your thoughts. It's so valuable for you to vary your vocal variety for maximum impact. Vary your vocal variety for maximum impact. Rather than speaking monotonously in one run-on sentence, it's so much better to be speaking sometimes a little bit slower and sometimes a little bit faster. I was going really fast to really get through on the first section, and now that we're back on track, it's so much more helpful for me to slow down, and I could say things louder and I can say things a little bit softer. Better to hear these intonations and subtleties in a live audience, but there's still a great value when we're speaking online and in a digital meeting. Fast, slow, in, out, loud, slow. Gestures and facial expressions are great ways to convey emotion and create retention. And I don't have any studies on this, but I know that people will look at you and pay more attention if you're able to vary your articulators, which are the muscles in your mouth to talk. If you're really happy, show it. And all of these different styles for present. If you're mad, show that you're mad. Show your anger, especially in a presentation and a speech. These will help connect you with your audience. The emotion is so much better when you're able to see it and experience it. Be an active facilitator. Something like what I said is be a leader. Don't just speak on, but really ask questions. Make sure we're following. Make sure everyone's with us, and be an active part of the presentation. And then the final section of this amazing web-based meetings portion about the visuals. So we talked about graphics, but visuals are different. When you're on camera, you want to make sure that your lighting is sharp, that your fluorescent lighting comes across cold and medicinal, and it can cast a cold and flat skin tone. If you've got incandescent lighting, sometimes it casts harsh shadows on your face. So it's good with what I mean by 2 or 3 here, I think that there are different levels. Yeah, like a level 2 or 3. That's what I mean. If you are going to have an incandescent light, have 1 or 2. Don't just have one light on you that's creating a shadow. You want to have one light here, and balanced, and maybe a light from above. So keeping your balance to your light can really, like movies would do. In the movie, people don't just shoot a scene with one light. They have multiple lights there. Diffused light or natural lighting is terrific. And another thing that's become real popular, this last one, is an LED ring light that you can find online for maybe $30 or $40. It just plugs into the USB port and creates a good colorful ring, evenly lit, and allows you to look really good on camera. So that's an LED ring light. And I'm presenting right now in front of a window, and that seems to have given me some good lighting. And I just also feel good just being in front of a window during today's COVID times. Just another side comment. Try to get as much light in, daylight during these darker days of the winter. The light can play a great effect in the way we feel, the way we think, and light and air, the fundamental essence of life itself. So try to get that. I know that people say I feel grumpy, I feel junky when they stay inside, or we have a couple of days of rain and sleep too long. This is the value of really trying to get outside and ensure that you're well lit. Hope that makes sense. Dress appropriately. I said it before, but I'll say it now because we're online. Dress appropriately, you're on stage. So dress better than your audience. Wear a nice jacket, dress like you're on stage. That's all I can say, and perhaps maybe some simple colors. A lot of people put on very complicated. I don't see anyone doing it here. I think that you're all well dressed, but I've seen some busy backgrounds, but I've also seen some people that mainly my mother, that just are out in left field with what they wear, but a simple shirt, it just subconsciously sends a message of simplicity and calmness and easy to follow, like we've got in this web meeting. I hope that makes sense. Anyone want to comment about the value of fashion on stage or in a web meeting? You guys are graphical people, and I'm assuming one of you knows a little bit more about this stuff than I do. Any colors that work well, Bethany?
I knew I was going to get called out for this crazy background. It's cheerful. It's energizing. That brings good energy.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, about colors, the number one topic that I've got on my website, believe it or not, is not about PowerPoint and all the services. It's the psychology of color. Everyone wants to know, what color should I make my PowerPoint? That's a separate conversation, but you can see it at presentationteam.com, and I'm probably going to add to it. And I think that there's a real value to the colors that we wear on a subconscious level. Next slide. Avoid harsh angles and headspace. Try to get your camera to be straight on with you. Headspace is one thing, but the angle is different. So if I'm standing up like this, you're going to see it differently with me, and it's really just recommended that you be eye to eye with anyone that you'd be talking to, and eye to eye with your camera as well. So that's the value here, is making sure that your headspace is right, that your eyes come into about a third of the screen. 1/3 of the way through of the screen is the invisible line on which your eyes should appear. A minimalist background is best, or minimalist backgrounds are best. So here I am in like the coffee center, or the copy center of the office, and here I am with a green screen. A lot of people are using green screens, and that's great, but I like to keep it very simple. Just nothing too complicated. I it, as a presenter, at the same time, I do see sometimes, and I see one person here, I think a bookshelf can be a wonderful background for conveying intellectualism and academia, all of that sort of stuff. So I'm a big fan of bookshelf backgrounds, but a messy house, kitchen, we got to do better than that, especially in a workplace business presentation. So I say just keep it simple. When it comes for visuals, you want to eliminate your motion-based transitions and animations. Those that tumble in, maybe your wind, your curtains. These are really cool graphics on stage in a big audience. I'm not a great fan of them. I think that they're a little bit unprofessional. I'm a big fan of something that's conservative and straightforward, what we call the subtle background transitions. So that would be a fade, a wipe, a wipe down, a wipe to the side, maybe just a peer. So look through PowerPoint, make sure that you're really trying to avoid these on the left, especially on web presentations, and just go with something simple. I do think that animations are valuable because you really want to keep up with your presentation and not have your audience read ahead and stare at the whole slide while you're still talking to bullet 1, and they've already read ahead to bullet 4. So keep your bullets moving at a good pace with animations. Display and test your presentation in slideshow mode. So many times you may think that you've got it, and I've looked and I've seen everything and it looks good to me on the animation pane, but try it out. Go through. This is a almost 200-page deck, but I've had to go through every slide to make sure that it works right. That kind of thing. Minimize distractions, like a Zen garden here with different stones. The importance of keeping your workspace clear. Shut your phone off. Shut your other monitor off from other apps. Shut your kids off. Ship them off. All of that stuff, can be so valuable to really keeping your workspace, your meeting space clear as between you and your audience, so that you're really not called in with other things that might throw you out and off. Could be valuable as a small business owner to be promoting and showcasing your company brand image, or in this case, maybe you all want to, hey, I'm presenting today. Maybe you want to put on the MDS logo on your shirt, whatever that could be, and all of those possibilities depending on how you want to present. But it could be really valuable just to have your company logo. I'm doing it in the only capacity here with my company brand name and at the footer. So presentation team and presentation design and training. That's what we do. Keep your notes nearby. So important, rather than, let me get out here, let me go look for this. Just a simple pen and paper can be really valuable to make sure that you've got notes that are clear and available to you if you need to speak on something or remember something later on. It's so important that you project your presence, not just your picture. We are all individuals. We are all unique. You have all been brought into a wonderful organization because you're wonderful people and it's an exceptional company. So it's valuable that we just not get out here and forget that who we are as people. So project your presence, not just your picture. So I welcome you to try some of these techniques out, because that is the last of this section for presentation tips for web-based presentations, amazing tips. So here we are,
Cool.
just around 1 o'clock on a happy Friday. And thanks again for everyone for coming along. And I hope that you lose sleep thinking of all the exciting things you can do with presentations now. So
great.
yeah,
Thank you, Kevin. Yeah, thank you again for joining us today. I think this was super helpful, and I think a good opportunity for all of us to kind of rethink, how we create presentations and how do we effectively deliver them as well.
Yeah.
So again, everyone, happy Friday. Enjoy the weekend. Hope you enjoyed MDS Camp, and I will talk to you again soon. Thanks.